United back in action in the Premier League, hosting Leicester City, who beat us 4-2 last time we faced them. Let's have a look at the preview. Jay here, Stretford, Paddock. This is the Leicester City preview. Joining me are two absolute giants from the fan base. We've got Abdullah. How are we doing, brother?
I'm all right, man, yeah.
Yeah? Good. Good to see you. Hey, I've missed you. And also Callum Stone. How are we doing, Cal?
Can't complain any more than I usually do, mate.
Eccles finest in the house. Eccles in the house, eh? Never mind South Manor.
South Manchester is the best part of Manchester. It's not even an argument.
I can't really argue. I used to South Manchester.
Exactly.
Can't believe I said South.
It's where Old Trafford is.
Manny on the map.
Right. You're not that. Don't be that guy.
I know. Apologies. Anyway, let's get to it. This is every game's a big game, but it's a big game in sense of Manchester United chasing that top four spot that does look in danger with the way Arsenal have been playing and everything else that's going on. Abdul, I'm going to start with you and we're going to get straight to the main topic that sort of been doing the rounds for the last few days. Harry Maguire, booed by England fans, praised by rival clubs, it would seem, on social media and a few other players as well. His record for United this season, or his performances for United this season, have been, should we say, somewhat patchy. Hasn't had a good spell in terms of clean sheets, and I think, is it 8 goals in the last 3 games we've conceded that he's played? Where do you stand on Harry Maguire? Do you think this is a good chance for him to turn this around?
I think it's a good chance, but the whole England thing baffles me. I think I've seen Steve was speaking about it earlier and stuff. I was just putting on the video, and a few other people were talking about it, and it's just so confusing to me because I thought he was one of England's best players in the Euros. I thought he was probably the standout centre-back. I thought England struggled in the first few games in the Euros where they were trying to play out the back and play into the final third. They looked much better side with him in the knockout stages.
I agree.
They grew into it, and I think a lot of that was down to him. Now, there's people that are just so unreasonable with the whole Harry Maguire thing. I think, yeah, he's been poor for Man United, but what's that got to do with anything to do with England? Like, we've seen so many players in the past that play for the country and then, they don't do so well in the club or don't really start and then, really turn it on when they go. So I don't know where that debate comes from. We've seen that happen in the past with multiple players. So the fans booing him, I don't get that in the England game. As for Man United, what we really care about, Harry Maguire has been poor this season. Now, he's a player that I actually rate. I think in his first season, Manchester United struggled to play through from midfield, and that ball carrying into the middle of the park, finding those passes onto the left-hand side into Shaw and into Rashford for parts of that season as well. Got an inexperienced Brandon Williams playing with him as well on the left side, sort of nurtured him, helped him there, and I thought that was a very solid season. Into the next season after that, and last season, we lose him before that Europa final, and I think most United fans were thinking that that's a big loss. It was only right because we was finished second. I thought he was mostly solid. The only issue I would have said mostly last season is that patchy start he had, come back from the whole Greece thing or whatever. But then since he got going, I think it must have been the goal he got against Newcastle. I'm pretty sure he scored a header against Newcastle, or he had that game against Newcastle away where we get that win. And I think since then he really kicked on. And we've seen consistent performances. We've seen solid performances. Now, if you say that to certain people now, they'll be like, no, he's rubbish. He turns like a truck, this and that. And they just start spouting stuff at you. They don't want to sit and debate properly about Harry Maguire. And I think you see a lot of casual fans that aren't watching games properly, unfortunately, because when you see them debate the Maguire thing, they aren't picking up on the right things. They'll see an out-of-context clip on Twitter and just say, yeah, this guy's rubbish, he's slow, this and that. But for me, his biggest problem right now is, the captaincy thing is probably the biggest issue for me because he should have never got the captaincy. And I think when the pressure's really come on now that you got Ronaldo, now that you got Bruno becoming an established player who plays, with his heart on his sleeve, he puts in a lot of effort, and he sees some other players in the team where you think Harry Maguire is really a leader, and that's where it becomes an issue. And fair enough that people have those concerns. But I think when he's done well, or whenever he has played well in a couple of the games, say this season, he gets overlooked. Whereas I think if similar players in his position, like a Lindelof or Varane, will have a game like that, you'll be like, hyped up. I think West Ham was one of those games where I was impressed with him at home. That was probably the only last decent game that I've seen of him. Tottenham, he got the own goal, and then I'm like, but you know what? He had a good game. Like, I thought he had a good game against Spurs. And then you go online, everyone's, he scored an own goal. It's just like people being so unreasonable. They're not arguing the thing properly. And you know what? For me, like, I've not even got him starting on the weekend. Like, he still, for me, doesn't deserve to start. He's not done it enough consistently as a centre-back. But there's no way that you're going to call Harry Maguire a rubbish player. Maybe not 80 million. Maybe he shouldn't be the captain of Man United. But I think he's a player that is probably the most unfairly judged player right now out of any Premier League player that I see.
I hear a lot of what you're saying there. Abdullah mentioned Ronaldo there, Cal. Ronaldo, who's obviously just got to the World Cup as well with Portugal. He's had a bit of a different story than Harry Maguire during the international break. Portugal obviously going through to the World Cup finals thanks to 2 goals from Bruno Fernandes. Ronaldo's record this season, if you look at it in the Premier League, I mean, record in Champions League, but in the Premier League as well, I think it's 12 goals in 24 games. People are looking at him and going, well, maybe Harry Maguire shouldn't be the captain, it should be Cristiano Ronaldo. What have you made of Ronaldo coming here? Do you think it has upset the apple cart? Do you think that, you know what, his record's decent? You can't blame him for Harry Maguire's performances, surely. You know, are we sort of... My point is, were we right to sign Ronaldo, and has it worked out as much as you'd hoped?
I think at the time, I think everyone was really happy about the whole Ronaldo signing. And to be fair, I was definitely one of them. Ultimately, Ronaldo probably is an issue at the club, but in terms of the issue, I don't think he is anywhere near that. The problem Ronaldo's got, I think, is because of how good he's been throughout his career. Obviously, it's Cristiano Ronaldo. Because he's not scoring at the same level, he's being judged on something different. Ultimately, he hasn't got the players around him that are performing. The team's quite disjointed. There's so many issues around that. And the fact that he's still doing what he's doing at 36, 37 is still incredible. I mean, his hat-trick's shown that as well. He's only a couple of goals away from 100 Premier League goals, which is, I think, is he the only player in Spain, Italy, and will be in England to ever do that? So his achievements speak for itself. I'm not completely in the camp that Ronaldo's a problem, mainly because if I look at where we'd be without Ronaldo, you know, we'd be out of the Champions League, we'd be a lot further down the table. So I just think there's much bigger issues. I think De Gea's an issue.
I'd say you mean by we'd have been out of the Champions League a lot.
Yeah, we'd have been out at the group stage. You know, we would have been well out there. We'd have been a lot further down the table. We'd be fighting for top half at this rate instead of the top 6 or Europa Conference League, for God's sake. But you know, I think there's bigger issues at the club. I think De Gea being one of them. I think he's a much bigger issue than Ronaldo. Maguire has been poor this season. Going back to what Abdullah said, you know, him being booed by England is so baffling because generally he's been good for England. Sometimes it's been in a 3, so he has been a little bit more protected, granted. But in general, he has been good. I mean, he made the Euros team of the tournament.
He was star of the match, as they call it now, against Germany. I mean, I think the thing you have to remember with a lot of this is the vast majority of England fans, and I don't want to alienate anyone here, are complete idiots. And it's just like, you know, burning effigies or whatever of David Beckham, booing, I've heard, you know, where were you in Africa to Wayne Rooney, death threats to Phil Neville when he gave away a penalty. Ronaldo winked playing against England and they wanted to kill him because he was trying to help his own country win a football match. There is no rhyme or reason to England fans, in the majority of them anyway. So I just look at it and I go, yes, it doesn't make any sense, but then again, a lot of what England fans do doesn't make any sense.
You know, the thing is, when it comes to that, right, is considering the abuse that Maguire has received whilst playing for United especially, but whilst playing for England as well, he's had personal abuse. His family have been abused on Twitter, to his face, whatever. You know, we got arrested in Greece because of abuse. I think it was his sister was receiving. And you didn't see the likes of Tottenham Hotspur tweeting, "Oh, we're with you, Harry." And I just find it a little bit baffling. You know, you barely even get this level of support when a player's been racially abused. I just find it a little bit strange at the amount of support that he seems to be receiving. And yeah, he was booed, but for God's sake, I get booed walking down the street sometimes. I think the whole thing needs to calm down a little bit. At the end of the day, he's been playing poorly for England and playing poorly for United. Sorry, and I wonder if some people are booing him because they're wondering why he's in the squad. But when you look at the comparison against some other centre-backs, Tyrone Mings is a worse centre-back than Harry Maguire.
I think the Southgate's made his point about Harry Maguire. He's been a mainstay of his team. Yeah. He's been part of the team that got to the World Cup semi-finals and played his part in that run. He's been part of the team that got to the Euros final. And as he came in once he was suspended, got star of the match against Germany, scored his penalty against Italy as well.
With one of the best penalties
I've
ever
I
think
seen
one
of the things is... I don't want to make this about Harry Maguire because we've spoken about it enough on the channel and on this preview. With all that being said about Ronaldo, about Maguire, about De Gea, everything else you've said, give us your predicted 11 for the visit of Leicester.
What I'm going for is obviously, as you can see there, Maguire is out the team. I just think I want
after he's been booed tonight, you banged out of order.
I just think it would actually be quite good for him to, you know, after what happened with Atletico and stuff like that. Varane, now I absolutely love Varane, you know, but I think people are slightly overrating what he's even done this season. Like, you got United fans claiming Varane's like, oh yeah, the best centre back in this team clearly and stuff. But I think Lindelof for me has been the guy in defence that's been the most consistent. Bar the City game, he had a bit of a stinker in that game. I think 2 of the goals were partly down to him away at City. Delot, I think what we're seeing against Atletico Madrid was what I mentioned on that show where we're talking about the right backs was, that intensity when he comes into the middle, taking up those central areas, being an extra man in the final third, which is something Wan-Bissaka doesn't offer. Of course, he's not been exactly perfect, but I'd still start him there over Wan-Bissaka. Lindelof, like I said, other than that one bad game, he's been all right. Sure, I'd like to switch it up, and now that he's got a goal for England as well, a bit of confidence coming back into the team. I think with Luke Shaw, obviously Marcus Rashford and his form and whatever's happened, he slightly does miss that link up because that was something that we almost built, Rashford and Luke Shaw. You'd almost see Marcus always get the ball on the edge of the box. That Shaw's going to make that run beyond him and he'll find him on the underlap or overlap. So that's maybe something where he can build with Elanga. And the reason I've got Sancho out on the right is because I think, I think Sancho still offers something when he's driving through into the centre of the pitch. Whereas if you can maybe bring Elanga in a central zone alongside Ronaldo, where they can be the 2 strikers, and Sancho can come inside and create, leaving the right flank for Delot to offer himself down there. And I'd like to see him, tried out there with Delot to build something on the right. As for Fernandes and Fred, I think Pogba didn't really get into the team for me. It looks like he's out at the end of the season. Fred has probably been our best midfielder over the last few months for me, most consistent, especially in this high 8 role where he's aggressively winning the ball back in the final third. We've seen what he did against Spurs. Matic, now that he's got a couple weeks, rest, he's going to be fit. And, with a fit Matic and ready to go, we always say this, he's probably the starting defensive midfielder for Man United. And Fernandes is coming off 2 goals for Portugal. Ronaldo's coming off a high, nice assist combining with Bruno as well for that goal. So yeah, that's my team. And to be honest, De Gea is still, again, I agree with Callum, like big question marks, but I just don't see him coming out of the team. Some mad mistakes against Atletico as well, where he put us under pressure with his ball playing.
Yeah, kind of makes a lot of sense. Callum, we'll go over to your team.
So start with De Gea. For some reason, I think Henderson just doesn't seem to want to get a look in at the minute from Ralph, for whatever reason, I don't know. Going with Delot, probably quite similar to what Abdullah said, really. I think he's got the intensity to attack and go forward down that right flank. And maybe even link up with whoever it is on the right, whether it be Elanga or Sancho, because I actually think that front line will chop and change quite a little bit. We'll see Elanga go central. I think we'll see Ronaldo drift out to the left a little bit. And even possibly even to the right with Sancho going over to the left, as we've seen throughout the season when he's played alongside Rashford. Going back to the defence, I've gone with Lindelof and Varane because I actually disagree with... not disagree is probably the wrong way of saying it, but Maguire coming out after the booing, I think is probably more necessary than we think because his head is just going to be so all over the place. And as you mentioned, top 4 does seem a little bit out of it at the minute, and any kind of mistakes at the moment could cost us. Yeah. Anything else now could cost us. So I think just bringing him out, giving him the weekend off, just try and get his head right again, I don't think would be a bad thing. Personally, I think Lindelof and Varane is our best partnership at this moment in time anyway. I've gone with Shaw. It really was a toss-up as well. There's a very strong possibility he'll go with Tellez again. I just thought maybe he'd give Shaw a go and chop and change him as he has been doing. Fred and Fernandes, I kind of think picks itself. Pogba, I think I'm just a bit finished with now. I think we're very aware he's probably leaving at the end of the season. He'll probably play, but I reckon he'll come on 60, 70 minutes. And I've gone with McTominay instead of Matic, simply because I forgot Matic was here. I meant to go for Matic. And I just thought, you know what, I'll go with McTominay because, him and Fred can sometimes do a job for us. I know Matic was doing well, but McTominay seems to have not played for a little while in terms of the consistent game time that he was getting. I think Matic's form probably proved that maybe McTominay did need a break, so maybe McTominay will come back into the team now and show a little bit of form. I'd just like to see McTominay show for the ball a little bit more. He tends to go hiding a little bit in games. I think he's a little frightened to get the ball sometimes, and if he could just sort of eliminate that from his game and start just open himself up to a pass a little bit more within the midfield, I think he could he could definitely offer something for Fred and Fernandes going forward, because Fred is that sort of number 8, that person pushing the ball forward and giving the ball to Fernandes to create something. I think really could work for us. I think there's no doubt we probably need a better number 6 role, a replacement for Matic. Like Matic 7 years ago would have been perfect to replace Matic now. So yeah, I think that team could probably do a job against Leicester. It just depends how they turn up, how they want to play, if they want to show a bit of effort, or if they're kind of given up on the season a little bit.
I think Leicester are a bit like us, isn't it? You just don't know what you're going to get from them as well. So it's one of those weird games.
We'll get to Leicester in a minute. Before we go off over to them, let's just look at my team and see how it compares. Very similar. It's a bit of a mixture of both your teams. There's a slight difference though. But you've all spoken about it. I've put Maguire in over Lindelof. I think that. I don't know. I just feel with everything that's gone on, he's going to play him. I just do. I don't think he'll drop him. He dropped him for the Watford game, didn't he? And then he played, like you say, he played against Spurs.
He said that was a tactical reason as well.
I just don't know. I just think with everything that's going on, he's going to put him back in the team and make him captain, or keep him as captain, I should say. So I think he'll play. Shaw again, I think he'll start. Delo, like what you said, Abdullah, about Delo. I'm with Matic. I know you said, Cal, you forgot he was there. But I think he'll play. I think he did a good get. He did. Was it Spurs he started against? He started against Spurs, didn't
well.
he? Played against Spurs, did very well. And I think when you've got Matic, you can afford to have Pogba and Bruno. And then Marcus Rashford, again, he's another player that's had his issues. I'm wondering whether, as well, I don't know if this will be Ralph Ragnick's thinking, whether he looks at the fact that the likes of Elanga, the likes of Lindelof, they've had international games this break.
No,
Marcus Rashford hasn't had a game, so he hopefully should be fresh. Put him back in the team. Jadon Sancho as well. Cristiano Ronaldo up front. Get on to Leicester. You were mentioning him there, Abdul. One player that was linked with Manchester United a little while ago, and that all sort of never really happened, and I don't think it's going to happen now, is James Maddison. Having a good season, though, at Leicester. What have you made of him so far? I think it's 8 goals, 3 assists. Someone that we might need to keep an eye on?
Yeah, I think James Maddison's always a threat. I think he almost sums up Leicester City a little bit, doesn't he, like James Maddison? Because you look at him, he's a player that can turn up for like patches in the season, and then he could just fade away. He's a player that I personally rate. I think when Leicester are on top form and they're having one of those games, almost everything goes through him and Youri Tielemans. And I think he can be a threat, whether it's from set pieces, whether it's in and around the box in general, finding passes into Jamie Vardy. He's always going to cause us. And I think he would be the player that I would highlight for Leicester City to cause us any problems, to be honest.
Vardy's the doubt. So at the time of recording this, Vardy's a doubt. He may well start. I don't want to get anyone's hopes up. Other than Maddison, we mentioned the fact that Vardy might not start. Anyone else that you look at that Leicester team and you go, I don't know, Harvey Barnes or whoever.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that he really does go under the radar, but I think Harvey Barnes is such a brilliant player for Leicester.
He's been in form
He's
as well,
a really good player.
Yeah.
He's one player that just doesn't seem to really get mentioned when big teams are looking at, for that. Is he a right winger or does he play on both sides?
I think he's mainly on the left.
I think he plays on left. I think he got injured, didn't he, last season?
He got injured badly.
Yeah, that really affected him. I know they still won the FA Cup, but losing Barnes, I think they lost one or two others, and they haven't got a massive squad, have they, Leicester?
Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean.
When you lose a player like that, it matters.
I mean, Brendan Rodgers being tight for the United job was insane in so many ways, but them being 10th, I think, is a little bit of it's a little unfair to sort of judge them on, because they have had a lot of injuries. They've got a couple of games in hand which could push them a bit further up the table. If anything, Leicester being around 6th to 9th is probably a good season, I think, for Leicester.
Yeah. They didn't have Fofana as well.
And he's supposed to be back. I think he's a doubt. Probably not to play the whole game, but there is a chance he could play. Another brilliant player you got Fofana, but Harvey Barnes is just a really special player.
Yeah, I think
he's he's brilliant for Leicester. He really knows what his job is. So I think we should be looking at him. But you are right, Abdullah, what you said. Like Maddison and Tielemans, everything comes through them. Yeah. And McTominay and Fred have, in the past, have had jobs where they've kind of had to match the other team's midfield. I do wonder if that'll be a job they're given. I think because we
got overrun, didn't we, in the 4-2? And the issue was that Matic, Pogba, Bruno. Like, the ball retention is good from Matic, and I thought Matic played good in that 4-2 Leicester game. He was the only good player in the 4-2 game. But I think Pogba, when they just, he felt so, it looked like he was so overwhelmed in that midfield. Like Maddison and Tielemans, because they play at such high eights that, especially if you're not a good defensive player, in midfield, like Paul Pogba, you almost just don't know what's going on behind you, and they push so high up.
Well, I mean, I know indeed he's a doubt for the game. I think he's actually injured, but like you say with Pogba, because they've got the likes of, in previous games when they've had Ndidi and Tielemans, they have been so good at just sort of isolating Pogba in the games.
Yeah.
I know we mentioned before about, obviously, we think he's going to be leaving. I don't think at this moment in time, Bruno and Pogba can't play together in a team, and I do wonder if Pogba even makes our best 11 at this point, especially against teams like Leicester.
I think it has to be Pogba or Bruno. Like that Atletico game, I would have started Pogba over Bruno because I thought Bruno had just come back from COVID. I think there's an issue with ball retention. So if you're going to go Fred, McTominay, Bruno, I don't see any of them holding the ball properly, and that's where Man United. That's where it becomes a problem. Where if it's like McTominay, Fred, you're gonna give Pogba the luxury of staying on the ball, and you got a bit better. You know, I know sometimes you lose it on a dribble or whatever, but in terms of his composure on finding the next pass and not that loose pass that Bruno has from time to time.
Yeah, he's always looking for a chance to create, Bruno, I think, and that can sometimes be his downfall because it's a wonder ball or whatever it's called.
It's unreal when it comes off.
Sometimes it's amazing when it happens, but when it doesn't, you just think there was so much better options on there just to keep the ball. Yeah. And that's where the balance of the team comes in as well.
It is a conundrum that Ralph Rangnick's going to have to figure out. Get involved in the comments and let us know whether you agree with my team, with Abdullah's, with Callum's, with any of ours or none of ours at all. Make sure you are getting involved. Abdullah, with everything that's been said, give us your score prediction.
I'm going to go 2-0 Man United. I'm just going to be confident.
A clean sheet?
Yeah, we're going to come back. Clean sheet from Harry Maguire.
Nice. He needs one. Yeah, not starting, but he'll get a clean sheet. Bring him on for the last 5 minutes so he can have it on his record. Callum, what are you going for?
I'm going to go 3-1 and still get really angry in the pub when I'm watching it.
3-1 to Manchester United Football Club. Fair enough. No, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with getting angry watching United. It's like a rite of passage.
It's a release, even though I find it really stressful watching them.
I think we're going to do to them what they did to us. I'm going to go 4-2 United.
Nice.
Why not? Why not? Hey, none of this defending like. Let's just go at it. Gung ho. Hey, and we'll give them a lesson. Let us know what your score prediction is. Do you agree with Callum? Do you agree with Abdullah? Do you think we're going to get a clean sheet? Do you think I'm right and we're going to score 4 goals? Or do you think we're all wrong and you've got your own opinions? Make sure as well you are subscribing to the channel. Abdullah, where can people find you?
AbdulGH_ on Twitter.
Are you doing anything else?
No, not currently. I'm going to keep that one on hold.
All right.
Till the keys drop.
Okay. Fair enough. I look forward to that. Callum, where can people find you?
You can find me at _Callum Stone on Twitter. I'm usually there moaning about United or moaning about the Tories.
Man after my own heart, eh? That's like my account, I tell you what. Hey, peas in a pod. You know where to find me as well. This has been the Leicester City preview. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Let's get to 700,000 subscribers by the end of the season. With your help, we can do it. That's been Abdullah. That's been Callum Stone. I've been Jay Motti. This has been the preview. Thanks for watching.